I stood there in the cabin, the cold night air seeping through the cracks in the walls, my hands trembling around the lantern. The figure was gone, or at least, it seemed gone. The eerie whispers had faded, but I knew this wasn't over. The fear that had gripped me only moments ago still lingered, creeping into every corner of my mind. The fight had been won, but something deep inside me told me that the battle wasn't finished, not by a long shot. I wasn't sure how much time had passed. The room was still, quiet, but the silence felt different now, unnatural, heavy, as though something was waiting for me to make the next move. I tried to calm my breathing, but my heart was still racing, and every step I took felt like I was walking through a dream, unreal, distant, and detached from my body. I dropped the lantern onto the floor, the flame flickering weakly as it dimmed. The light from the lantern had pushed the figure back, but I knew it wasn't just the light that had driven it away. It was something deeper, something tied to the mausoleum, to the curse I had broken, something that had been waiting for centuries to return. I needed answers. The town's history, the Allens, the mausoleum, it was all connected. But what was the truth behind it? What had I actually unleashed when I broke the rule? I walked to the small table by the window, my mind spinning with the questions I had been trying to push aside. I dug through my bag and pulled out the old history book I'd found at the library. The pages were yellowed, the ink faded in places, but the words were still there. As I flipped through it, my eyes landed on the section about the Allens, the family whose pact with dark forces had bound them to this place. The words in the book were cryptic, vague, but the message was clear. The Allens had made a terrible bargain to gain power and wealth. They had summoned something, a force, something that was not human, a being of darkness, of death. But in the process, they had cursed themselves, trapping this entity within the mausoleum, sealing it away with an ancient ritual. The more I read, the more I understood. The Allens had thought they could control it. They believed they could bargain with the darkness, use it to their advantage, but something went wrong. The dark force they had summoned wasn't bound by human rules. It twisted and corrupted them, turning their desires into madness. And when they realized the truth, when they realized they couldn't control it, they sealed the mausoleum, hoping to trap it forever. But the pact had left a scar on the land, and the spirits of the Allens, twisted by the darkness, had been bound to the graveyard. And now, because I had broken the rule, the curse was beginning to unravel. The entity was awake again. The figure I had seen in the mausoleum, the entity, it was reaching out for me. It wanted this amulet. It wanted to be free. I clenched the amulet tightly in my hand, determined not to let it go. But as I did, I felt a surge of energy, a power that I couldn't control. It was like a storm gathering inside me, a force that was beyond anything I had ever experienced. The room seemed to shift, the walls closing in on me, the shadows darkening and twisting. I wasn't alone. The entity was here, and it was powerful. The whispers turned into screams, and the cabin began to shake. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't let it win. I ran outside, clutching the amulet. The graveyard stretched before me, the mausoleum looming in the distance like a black hole, drawing me towards it. I knew what I had to do. I had to return the amulet to the mausoleum, where it belonged. Only then could I hope to stop the curse. The whispers followed me, louder now, more demanding. They were inside my head, clawing at my thoughts, begging me to turn back. But I didn't listen. I couldn't. I reached the mausoleum and stood before it, my heart pounding in my chest. The door was wide open, the shadows inside beckoning me. I could hear the figure moving inside, its footsteps slow and deliberate. I stepped forward, amulet in hand, and the door slammed shut behind me.
I felt the weight of the mausoleum's door slam shut behind me, and immediately the air around me grew thick, heavy, as though I were being suffocated. The darkness inside the crypt seemed to swallow me whole, and the faint glow of the amulet in my hand was the only thing that kept me from being completely engulfed. Every step I took felt like walking in a dream, unreal, yet terrifyingly real. The whispers were back, louder than ever, swirling around me like a storm. They screamed, they begged, they cursed. They told me to leave, to run, but their voices were no longer comforting. They were warnings, warnings that I had already ignored, and now I was facing the consequences. The figure from before appeared at the far end of the mausoleum, its twisted form moving slowly, deliberately toward me. Its eyes, black as coal, locked onto mine with a chilling intensity. I could feel its gaze cutting through me like ice, leaving me frozen in place, unable to move. "You shouldn't have come back," it said, its voice like dry leaves scraping against a tombstone. The words echoed in my mind, a reflection of the darkness that filled the room. But this time, I wasn't afraid. The amulet in my hand pulsed with a power I had never felt before. It was the key to the curse, the key to the evil that had been sealed away in this mausoleum for centuries. I had broken the rule, yes, but now I was going to fix it. Or at least I would try. The figure moved closer, its footsteps dragging across the stone floor with a sickening sound. I raised the amulet, my hand trembling, and for a brief moment, the whispers stopped. Everything went quiet, as if the mausoleum itself had held its breath. The darkness seemed to recede just a little, like a wave pulling back from the shore. I stepped forward, the amulet glowing brighter in my palm. The figure didn't stop. It moved closer still, its grin widening, revealing sharp, jagged teeth. It reached out, its skeletal hand clawing at the air in front of me, ready to tear me apart. But I wasn't going to let it. I couldn't. I held the amulet up higher, focusing all my energy on it. The whispers roared again, deafening, but I ignored them. The power in the amulet surged, and I felt it, like a spark igniting inside me. The force that had been trapped in this mausoleum for so long, the curse that had bound this place, it was reaching out, trying to take me, to make me its next victim. But I wouldn't let it. With every ounce of strength I had, I hurled the amulet toward the figure. It soared through the air, glowing with an intensity that made the walls of the mausoleum vibrate. As it neared the figure, the darkness seemed to fight against it, but the amulet pressed on, cutting through the air with the power of everything I had been too afraid to face. The figure shrieked, a sound so terrible it rattled the very foundation of the mausoleum. It reached out, its bony hands trying to catch the amulet, but it was too late. The amulet struck the figure in the chest, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. The figure staggered back, its body twitching, its form flickering in and out of existence. Then, the room exploded in light. A blinding flash consumed everything. The whispers turned to screams, and the walls shook violently as the very air seemed to crack under the pressure. I fell to my knees, shielding my eyes from the light. The heat was unbearable, like standing too close to an open flame. I felt the power of the curse, the dark force that had been chained here for so long, trying to break free. It raged, clawing at the edges of the mausoleum, desperate to escape. But the amulet had done its work. The darkness was being sealed again. The light began to fade, and the room grew still. The oppressive weight lifted from my shoulders, the whispers fading into silence. I opened my eyes and looked around, half expecting the figure to be standing there, ready to tear me apart. But it was gone. The mausoleum was quiet now, the air still and heavy, like it had never been disturbed. I stood up slowly, my legs weak from the fear and the tension. I felt as though I had just woken up from a nightmare, but the reality of it all hit me like a cold slap to the face. The curse was still there, but it had been contained. The figure, the evil force, it was trapped again. For how long, I didn't know, but for now, it was over. I walked slowly toward the door, my body aching with exhaustion, my mind reeling from everything that had just happened. I reached for the handle, but before I could open it, I stopped. There was one more thing I had to do. I turned back to the mausoleum, staring at the stone walls that had been the prison for so many years. The islands had sealed this place away for a reason. They had done what they could to contain the darkness, but it wasn't enough. The curse had been broken once before, and now it had been broken again. The question was, how long would it be before it rose again? I didn't have the answer. I didn't know if the curse was truly gone for good, but I knew one thing. I couldn't leave this place. I couldn't leave the graveyard, not now. There was still too much to do. I had survived, but in a way, I was now bound to the graveyard. I would never be free of it. The curse had been undone, but its echoes would follow me forever. I walked outside, stepping into the cold night air, the graveyard stretching out before me. The darkness was still there, but it was different now. It wasn't the same oppressive force that had haunted me. It was quieter, almost peaceful. But I knew the truth. Nothing here would ever be truly at peace. I looked up at the sky, the stars twinkling in the distance. Maybe one day, someone would come and uncover the truth. But for now, it was my responsibility. I was the guardian of this place now, the one who had broken the rule, the one who had to ensure the curse was never unleashed again. And with that thought, I stepped into the darkness, knowing that it would never truly let me go.
The wind howled through the graveyard as I stood at the edge of the gates, staring back at the mausoleum. The darkness had returned, but it felt different now. It wasn't the same oppressive weight I had felt when I first set foot in this cursed place. No, it was quieter, subtler, almost like the graveyard itself had accepted its fate. But I knew the truth. It wasn't over. Not really. The whispers had stopped, but I could still feel them, deep in my bones, echoing in the silence. They were always there now, always just beneath the surface of my thoughts. And that's when I realized I wasn't just the caretaker of the graveyard anymore. I was something else, something darker. I had become a part of it, a part of the curse. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, allowing the cold night air to fill my lungs. The chill felt good, like a reminder that I was still human, that I hadn't completely given in to the darkness. But the feeling that had followed me, that had watched me, was never far behind. The figure, the thing that had once hunted me, was gone, at least for now. But it wasn't the only force at work in the graveyard. The mausoleum, the tombs, the spirits of the Allens, there was so much I hadn't fully understood, so much I could never truly comprehend. The ancient curse had been sealed again, but the land, the dead, and whatever malevolent force had lingered for centuries, none of it had been eradicated. It was just waiting. I turned back to face the darkened gates. I could still hear the faint rustle of the trees, the whisper of wind passing through the stones. I knew it would always be like this. No matter how much time passed, no matter how far I tried to run, I would always be tied to this place. The graveyard had marked me, and no matter what I did, I would never truly escape. I had broken the rule. I had awakened something that should never have been disturbed, and now I was its keeper. I had become a part of it, a part of the curse. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, allowing the cold night air to fill my lungs. The chill felt good, like a reminder that I was still human, that I hadn't completely given in to the darkness. But the feeling that had followed me, that had watched me, was never far behind. The figure, the thing that had once hunted me, was gone, at least for now.
But it wasn't the only force at work in the graveyard. The mausoleum, the tombs, the spirits of the Allens, there was so much I hadn't fully understood, so much I could never truly comprehend. The ancient curse had been sealed again, but the land, the dead, and whatever malevolent force had lingered for centuries, none of it had been eradicated. It was just waiting. I turned back to face the darkened gates. I could still hear the faint rustle of the trees, the whisper of wind passing through the stones. I knew it would always be like this. No matter how much time passed, no matter how far I tried to run, I would always be tied to this place. The graveyard had marked me, and no matter what I did, I would never truly escape. I had broken the rule. I had awakened something that should never have been disturbed, and now I was its keeper. I had become the last line of defense, the one who would stand watch, guarding the graveyard, guarding the mausoleum, knowing that the dead never rest. And sometimes I wonder if I made a mistake. I wonder if the price I paid was too high. But no matter how much I try to understand it, I can't change what happened. I can't undo the curse that I unleashed. As I stood at the gates, the wind blowing harder, I realized that I wasn't alone. The whispers had returned, not loud enough to be clear, but just enough for me to hear. They were soft, like a breeze passing through the trees, but they were always there, lurking in the back of my mind. I turned and walked toward the caretaker's cabin, but as I passed the mausoleum once again, I couldn't help but glance toward it. The door was cracked open, just a little, as if waiting for me. I had learned the hard way that some rules aren't meant to be broken, and some things, some dark ancient things, are meant to stay hidden. But now, I was the one who held the keys. I was the one who had the power to keep them locked away, and I would do it, no matter the cost. I reached the cabin, and just before I stepped inside, I paused. The air felt different, as though the weight of the graveyard's secret had settled on me permanently. It was like a dark shadow looming over me, one I could never escape. It had marked me, and I couldn't run from it anymore. I closed the door behind me, locking it for the night. But I knew deep down that the graveyard was still out there, watching, waiting. The curse was not gone, it was just sleeping, and it would rise again. I could feel it in my bones. And then I heard it, a soft knock at the door. At first I thought it was just the wind, but then it came again, louder, more urgent. I took a step back, my heart racing. The whispers filled the room now, louder, more distinct. They were calling me. I turned, looking at the door, and then, with a sense of finality, I knew I would never leave. Not now, not ever. Some rules aren't meant to be broken, and sometimes you never leave, no matter how hard you try.